The Adventure Jogger, a podcast about trail and ultra running. Meet fascinating runners from the front, middle, and back of the pack, sharing inspiring and funny stories about life and running. Running should be fun, and so should running podcasts. I'm your host, Steven Kornhaus, and this is The Adventure Jogger. Today's guest on The Adventure Jogger podcast comes all the way from Australia. He's got a pretty awesome FKT already under his belt, and he's getting ready to go for another massive effort that is just going to be, it's crazy. 4,000 kilometers. I'll go ahead and get it out of the bag. It's going to be crazy. So anyway, I'm really excited to chat with you, Jason. So welcome Jason Williamson to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Steven. It's great to be here. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's we were kind of chatting a little bit before. It's just nuts to me that you're like 16 hours ahead. It's now Tuesday your time, and it's Monday for me when we're recording this. It's our world is massive, but yet small.
Yeah, trying to set this up took some mental arithmetic on my end. The time zones. Yeah, we made it happen.
Luckily, Google came to the rescue for me.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, Jason, before we get into some of the bigger projects that you've done and that you've got planned for this year, let's take a step back and go kind of to your, I guess, childhood or wherever you first got into running. Like, what was it that brought you into the sport?
Nothing over the top or too exciting. I ran as a child. I grew up on a farm in Australia. So from the minute I could kind of move, I was outdoors playing outside, running through the fields and the paddocks and, chasing my older brothers around. And when I was, I guess, in early high school years, I got into cross country running at school, which I really enjoyed. I was never, at the front of the pack. I was kind of like, there was always a couple of big, tall, lanky lads, always in front, but I used to enjoy trying to chase them down. But I just enjoyed it. That's my earliest memories of running outdoors was that cross country running at school. Just, it was something I look forward to every week, and I loved it. So from there, running kind of became my go-to sport through my teenage years. Not really on a highly competitive level, but just enjoyment at school, sports days when they allowed it. And then as I got into my later teenage years, I got into surfing as well. So surfing was quite a big part of my life in my late teens and early 20s. And
Okay.
And then I guess I moved as my career took off with flying and aviation in Australia. I moved to the Outback, and so the surfing stopped. And the social life picked up a lot. So I wasn't running as much as what I used to be, but it was always there in the background. It was something that, I don't know, I'd kind of do I'd go on a bit of a health kick for a few months, and I'd do lots of running, and then that would all come to a stop, and I'd discover a better social life. So that would take over for 6 or 12 months, and then I'd get back to the running. But it's always been there in the background. It's been the default activity that I guess I've always gone to.
Yeah. Now, the town that you grew up in, how do you pronounce it?
It's Port Macquarie.
Macquarie. Okay, Port Macquarie.
Yeah.
And that's New South Wales, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's about, if you're in a car and you flew into Sydney, it'd take you about 3.5 hours drive from Sydney up to Port Macquarie, just north of Sydney.
North of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, you said you grew up on a farm. Was that like a cattle ranch, or what kind of farm was it?
It was a small kind of hobby farm. It wasn't a massive ranch. We had about 40 acres, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that is in hectares. What do you guys work in, hectares or acres?
Well, we go by acres as well.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Yeah. So we had cows and sheep and that sort of thing, but we were rural, we were kind of out in the country, lots of kind of small farms like us around. So the roads are really good to run on in that area as well. Just sort of dirt lanes in the middle of nowhere.
Oh yeah. I love a good country road to run on. There's usually not much traffic. You usually have more cows than vehicles.
Yeah, you can't beat them. You can't beat them, can you? Just nice gravel dirt roads in the middle of nowhere, and trees and birds and animals and wildlife, and they just go on and on for miles. I'm sure you guys have got that sort of stuff over there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I used to live in Tennessee, which was more rural, and we had a lot of farmlands and like roads surrounded like that. But now here where I live in Colorado, it's kind of in the city, so I got to go for a little drive to get to those dirt roads. Yeah. Well,
You've
so
still,
you
you've
said
still got plenty, you've got plenty of nice outdoors in Colorado. I love it up
absolutely.
there. Yeah, yeah.
So you said you moved to the Outback. So like when I think of the Outback, is that like were you in the mainland or the inland portion of the country, like way away from the coast?
Yeah, so when I left school, I wanted to learn to fly. I wanted to become a commercial pilot. So I did that. And when I got my kind of very basic commercial pilot's license, in Australia, back then, you kind of did one of two things. You either became a flight instructor or you went into the outback or, to the remote parts of Australia and got a job flying little aeroplanes around the place, onto dirt strips, servicing little communities and things. There's so many little kind of remote indigenous communities and other big ranches or farms in the outback that require postal services each week in little planes and that sort of thing. So I went to the very north of Australia, the northwest of Australia, the Kimberley region, it's called, and I spent 4 years up there. Flying kind of in that area, and that's really remote. I mean, there's a couple of roads running through the center of it, and that's it. I mean, there's
Oh wow.
farms out there, and there's ranches out there that we call them stations over here, but there's stations there that in the wet season will be entirely cut off, and their only access will be the mail plane that comes in once or twice a week to drop the mail off. So I did that for a few years.
Oh wow. That's
Yeah.
uh that's certainly remote. So is that primarily what so you have your own aviation company, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was a pilot for about 25 years. And in the last 5 years of that flying career, I started an aviation company in Ireland. And that was about 10 or 12 years ago. And that's kind of taken over now. So I left flying about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and now just running that. So yeah, I guess aviation's always been in my blood and it's still in my blood, but now it's done more at a desk in front of a computer or with the phone in my ear, not not in the cockpit.
Yeah. So you're hiring the pilots and managing all of that, the administrative stuff, but you're not out there piloting the planes anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, I had fun
Okay.
doing it, but at the same time, I don't really miss it anymore. I like staying home. I was
Okay.
away for so many years, so it's great to be home.
Yeah. Now you had said you would wanted to be like a commercial pilot. So did you ever fly like commercial airliners or has it always been like mail kind of drops and things like that?
No, I did that for a few years, kind of to build my experience, and then I ended up in the Middle East for about 15 years on private jets.
Oh,
Um, so I worked for NetJets, which is very big in America. They had a franchise over in the Middle East, NetJets Middle East, and so I flew private jets for quite a long time in Saudi Arabia, in
oh
Jordan,
wow.
Bahrain. We spent some time in Hong Kong as well, flying Gulfstreams and that type of aircraft. Um, and Moscow as well. And then during that time is when I met my wife, Claire, who was nursing in Saudi Arabia, and she's from Ireland. And so we met there, and that's how I basically ended up in Ireland. She took me back there,
Oh
and
wow.
we settled down there. So. Yeah, there was the aviation in the outback of Australia was just kind of the very beginning, and after that, it just took me all over the world. And
Yeah.
in that time, yeah, to answer your question, I did do commercial flying for a couple of years in the airlines. But I just found that I really enjoyed. I did that, and then I ended up going back to the private flying because I found that much more enjoyable. And um, you never knew where you would be from one day to the next. Someday, you'd just kind of be on standby for the owner, and then
Yeah.
they'd phone up and say, "Let's go here or there." So
Yeah, there's someone I know that's a pilot for a large corporation CEO, and he's kind of like that, where it's you might get a phone call the night before and say, "Hey, tomorrow we're going here," and he's like, "Okay, sir, I'll be
yeah,
there."
exactly, exactly,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of exciting, but I could see how that would be difficult for a family life.
Yeah, it was really good fun. I did it for years, but as we had kids, it all changed. To live in Ireland and do that sort of job, it was kind of rotations. So I do like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or 1 month on, 1 month off. So it was nice to have that time at home, but it was just a long time away from home as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So when was it you said you moved to Australia with Claire?
Well, we
Or
met
sorry,
and
not Australia.
to Ireland.
Ireland.
It was about 15 or 16 years ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we kind of we met and then we continued living abroad for a few years and then we moved home. We moved to Ireland, and but I continued working abroad, so I was coming and going from Ireland, and that was kind of the story of our lives for our early marriage and when we first had kids. And then in the last 5 or 6 years, I've been at home, or the last 7 or 8 years, at home a lot more.
Okay.
So yeah, and the last couple of years, just home all the time, which is great.
And then throughout that, I guess let's call it your the career portion of your life, where you were focused on building your business and flying, and was running kind of taking the back seat, and you didn't really do much of that anymore during that phase.
Yeah, it did, and it kind of the pattern I had in my earlier years continued. Like I'd go through phases of like, you know, really getting into it for a year, maybe even two. Well, two might be a stretch, but I'd kind of, you know, I'd do a lot of running, and then I'd get busy with work or career or growing the business, and it just would all take a back seat. And I guess, like when I look back at that now in hindsight, it was probably because I was running. It was my go-to activity, but I wasn't really associating it with anything except I guess trying to stay healthy. There was no racing or events, or I wasn't training. There was no formal training or anything. It was just something I did when I knew I had to get into the gym and jump on the treadmill. And I guess with the work too, being as it was, you know, I'd be in different countries all the time in hotels. So it'd just be down to the gym into onto the treadmill,
Yeah.
and that was my way of getting over jet lag and just trying to stay healthy in that kind of environment. You know, that flying environment can be when you've been doing it for years, it can be quite unhealthy if you don't take care of yourself because you're living in hotels. You know, you're not eating the best food. There's a lot of sedentary time, and you're fighting jet lag, fatigue, broken rest. You know, it can be unhealthy if you let it be.
Yeah, I imagine so. It's always on the go. I know even like just a short business trip where I'm gone for 3 or 4 days, I always eat, not very good quality food and I'm not
Yeah,
exercising as much. So I can imagine that put a big toll on the,
yeah,
the fitness overall and your health. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
so when did you get back into running more like focused or became more of a part of your life?
Well, I'm turning 50 this year. It wasn't until I was kind of into my early 40s, so we're not talking that long ago. Probably 8 years ago or so. Um, we I what actually I was on another podcast recently, and it got me thinking about it because what someone asked me what got me back into it, and when I finished that podcast and had a good think about it, I realized that there was a moment where there was a couple of we went through a very stressful time building the business and then there were a few photos taken at one point of the team, and we are all celebrating the launch of our website back then. And I looked at myself in the photo, and I thought, "Holy cow, that's terrible, Jason. You're only like 41 or 42, and you look like you're 55. You need to do something seriously." I hadn't realized how much I'd kind of gone backwards in the last 5 years because I'd just been so focused on everything else except my health. So that was
Yeah.
kind of it was a bit of a wake up call for me. And yeah, I think pretty much straight away I bought a pair of running shoes and just said, right, I'm going to get back into this running and I'm going to do it consistently now. So that was the turning point, I guess. And at that point, I wasn't planning on running ultra marathons or training to any great extent. It was just about getting my health back together, losing some
Right.
weight, feeling good, feeling fit, and knowing that I'd be going through my 40s feeling okay. That was what it was
Yeah.
all about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when did you make that switch to the ultra scene where you decided to start, doing some races and having some competitive events?
So what happened was I did that for a while. I did that for a couple of years, just running and getting my kind of shape back together and my fitness. We bought a treadmill at home because in Ireland, back in those days before I got into ultra running, I didn't think I could run outdoors when it was raining. So I bought a treadmill. I ran inside, and so once I had a treadmill, I was doing a lot more. It just kind of naturally built. I found that the longer I ran, the more I enjoyed it. And when I say longer, I wasn't doing more than maybe an hour and a half or two, something like that. But I was just feeling really good. And then and then we came out to Australia to visit the family here just as COVID kicked off. And Australia shut down like I don't know, 2 or 3 days after we got here,
Oh
and
no.
we were kind of locked in here, which wasn't, we were kind of happy about it, I guess, in a way. It was our excuse to stay. So we put the kids in school here in Australia, and I suddenly found I had so much time on my hands because the company was back in Ireland, and everyone was working through the day in Ireland, which was a night here. And when I'd wake up in the morning in Australia, no one was working in Ireland, so I had no one to talk to. So I had so much time on my hands. I just started running, and I started running a lot, and that's pretty much straight away is when I started getting into the ultra running. Someone mentioned to me there was a 100-kilometer race not far from where I was in Port Macquarie, and and at first I thought, wow, that's crazy. Who could do that? And because I have an older brother who used to do Ironmans, and I just used to be in awe of him that he could swim and then ride and then run a marathon. I at that point I still hadn't run a marathon. I think I'd run like 25 or 26 kilometers, and that was it. I was out of steam, and so I was in complete awe of these people who could do this stuff. But I thought, well, there's so many people doing it. Surely I can do it if I put my mind to it. So I started training for this race, and we lived near the course. So I was out training on the course. It was quite hilly. It was through the bush, and uh, one night I went out there at night time, and it was 4 loops of 27 kilometers. So it was about 108 kilometers altogether. And
Okay.
one night I went out there and I did 2 loops at night time on my own, 54 kilometers, and that was the furthest I'd ever run. And I really surprised myself, but I did it. And I was very, very tired afterwards. But I figured, well, if I can do that in the middle of while I'm training and I'm out there on my own at night, then I know I can do this on the race. I can do at least half of it. And if I can do half, surely I can do 3/4. And if I do 3/4, I'll just grind my way through the final lap. I'm sure I can do it. So that's kind of how I went into that. I didn't have a coach. I had no formal training. I just learnt about gels. I'd realized I could buy these gels that gave you extra energy. I had no idea about how much to consume per hour, or I had no idea about nutrition at all.
Yeah.
But I went out and I ran it, and I had a great time, and I actually came first. I won it in the end.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, which really, really, I mean, I was surprised I finished, and then I was even more surprised that I actually won it. So,
Now, was that
now,
the Elephant Trail race?
yeah, that was the Elephant Trail race. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And you won your
And
first ultra. Wow.
yeah, and my brother was crewing me actually at the going around 4 times at the main base camp of it, the main headquarters of the race. He was crewing me, so every few hours he'd see me there. And after the second loop, I was in the lead, and he said to me, Jason, no one ever remembers who's winning at the halfway point, so just slow down, slow down. And
That's good
um,
advice. That's good
it is
advice.
good advice. It's really good advice because I was kind of excited that I was in the lead, and he kind of tempered that, and he said, "Come on, man, you're only halfway. You're only halfway." So
Nice.
that was my hook, I guess, into the sport. I came away from that with just uh, the most amazing sense of achievement, and I had no idea that I was even capable of anything like that, but I'd done it, and I'd enjoyed doing it. One of the aid stations there, it was an older couple came up to me after the race who'd been running one of the aid stations kind of halfway around the loop, and they said to me, well done, but they said you were the happiest runner out there. Every time you passed, you had time to talk and have a laugh, and I thought, well, that was really nice because I really wanted to enjoy it, and it's always been since then. obviously I've taken the sport kind of a lot more seriously, and but I've always kept at the front of everything that I want to enjoy it. You know, it's just running at the
Yeah,
end of the day, and I want it to be enjoyable.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, do you remember? I know that was back, I think, in 2021. Do you remember about what your time was for that 108-kilometer race?
I think it was about 18 hours or something like that.
Okay,
17
that's
or
pretty
18
good.
hours from memory. There was like 6,000 meters of vert in that too.
Oh, wow.
So there was some really slow sections.
Yeah.
It was there was a lot of runnable sections, but there was some really steep slow sections. So it was I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, 6,000 meters. That's nothing to joke about. That's pretty serious.
Yeah.
What would now I'm curious, I don't know a lot geographically about Australia other than it's a massive landmass. What is the highest point of that course, the Elephant Trail Race? Like what was your altitude, the highest you got to?
We're at sea level here, and the actual mountain range where that happens, I'd say not that high, probably 700 or 800 meters above
Okay.
sea level.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's not but it's kind of there's a big mountain, and you end up going up and down that mountain a couple of times while you do the loop, and then there's smaller foothills around it. So
Okay.
I think each loop you ended up doing about 1,500 meters of
Wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And then after that, it looks like you did that same year, 2021, at least you did a couple of marathon distance races. Now, those were trail marathons, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
And it looks like you had some pretty good results. You won both of those as well.
Yeah, I guess again that kind of set me up for a positive mindset. I thought, well, I seem to be doing okay here. I mean, they're local races, so we're not talking UTMB or anything, yeah, it was nice. It was nice not to be at the back. I never really expected to win or come second as I did in some of those, but it was really good to do. I really enjoyed that, and it just gave me a sense of confidence, I guess, because
Yeah, it's
I had nothing to base it on. I had no history of this kind of competitive running. I had no idea where I stood in the pack, or whether I was what I was like. So yeah, that was good.
well, I'd say you must have taken to the running pretty darn well because you mentioned UTMB, and I mean you did the Ultra Trail Cape Town, which I think is that now a UTMB race, I believe,
I
currently.
think that's now part of the World Trail Majors.
Yes,
The other
that's right. Yes.
exactly. Yeah,
But that's a pretty competitive field usually, the Ultra Trail Cape Town. And I mean, you finished 25th overall and second in your age group at a pretty
yeah.
competitive race. That's pretty darn impressive.
No, that was an amazing race. Yeah, that was that. I've often spoken to friends about that. I tried to go back the next year actually, but I couldn't with family things. But yeah, that it's just such a beautiful race. That course around Cape Town is just stunning.
It looks quite beautiful. I've seen a few YouTube documentaries about it. It does look like quite a beautiful race.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then so in June of 2023 is when you tackled the Ireland Way. But when did that idea first come about for you to do this, over 1,000-kilometer point to point trail and try to set the fastest known time? Like when did you first have that idea?
It's a good question, and people have asked me that, and I can't really pin down any one particular moment, but I do recall for a period of several months the year before starting to think about, and I do it when I was driving from our local town out to our house. It takes about 15 minutes, and for some reason on that drive, I was always thinking about what's next. What could I, like these races are great fun. I really enjoy them, but maybe there's something more, and I'm sure somewhere during that time I probably watched someone doing some kind of amazing FKT across a country or something like that. There was probably a moment like that triggered it. I'd always been in the background. I'd always been really the intrigue or the idea of running across Australia was always there, but that was just way out there. There was no way that was even going to ever happen. So here I was in Ireland, 1,000 kilometers is a really long way, but it's not 4,000 kilometers like running across Australia. So, um, and then when I dug into it in Ireland, there's already an established kind of FKT on the road in Ireland, and it's called the Mizzen to Malin or the Malin to Mizzen, which is a bit
Okay.
like the jog in the UK. And it's basically from the very northern point in Ireland to the very southern point along the roads.
Okay.
And and that Mizzen to Malin is kind of it's well known in Ireland and the UK as an established FKT, but that's road running. And it takes most people 3 or 4 days to do that. That's about 650 kilometers, I think. But
Oh,
there's as I kind of looked into that, I discovered there was this like this network of trails in Ireland that no one really seemed to talk about. Um, and their local trade, like Ireland's divided up into counties, a bit like states, and each county has their own trail, and they're kind of linked, and they're linked all the way through Ireland, and it's an established hiking trail. It's very popular with hikers, probably a bit like the AT or the PCT over there.
mhm.
Um, and But it's not really recognized as a running route. So that kind of intrigued me. I dug into that a bit more, and I realized that this was something. As I dug into it, it was really exciting me. It was like this is really cool. It's just trail running from the southern point to the northern point of Ireland. Um, so I looked into that, and I realized that there was someone that had run it a couple of years earlier, which it didn't make loads of publicity, so there was an FKT on it. He'd set that, and I think he'd taken like 16 days or something to do it.
Okay.
And it's an interesting route because it's probably at the end of the day it's probably 70% trail and 30% local roads to join up the different trails. So there's sections of the Island Way where you're heading up over mountains, um, quite remote mountains, and then down you'll kind of intercept a local road and you'll run along the local road for 10 or 15 kilometers, and you'll be back up over another mountain, and then you might spend a few hours going through farmers' properties and fields, and they'll have stiles over the fences, so it's an established route, and the local council pays them an annual kind of amount just to help look after that part of the route on their land. Um, and then there's other sections which aren't well maintained, and you're literally down on your hands and knees crawling under hedges and trying to find a way through. So uh, as I dug into it, just this whole sense of adventure kind of really excited me, and I realized over the course of a few months that's what I wanted to do. And by this stage, I'd had a running coach for probably 18 months or so, um, and he's out here in Australia. And I sent him a message. I delayed it for a few weeks because I felt like a bit of a fool even asking him. But I sent him a message eventually, and I said, "Hey, there's this route in Ireland called the Island Way, and it's about 1,000 kilometers, mostly trail, some road. Do you think I'm dreaming? Just tell me to stop." And he got back to me straight away, and he said you absolutely could do it based on your training volume and what you're doing. He said, "I've got no doubt at all you could do it. The challenge for you will be mentally working out why you want to do it, so that you've got something to hang on to when the going gets tough." But he said, "Physically, I've got no doubt at all that you can do it."
Wow.
And I know he coached a few people on multi-day events around Japan and New Zealand and that type of thing. So he had something to go on. So yeah, so that when he gave me that little boost of confidence, then there was kind of all hands on deck. Let's do this. And so yeah, it went from there.
That's awesome. And it's not, I looked it up. It's not like an easy trail because it's over 81,000 feet of elevation gain over that, for us in America, 628 miles, I think, 1,083 kilometers. So it's a lot of elevation gain on this. It's not just, running on a road, like you said, 30% might be on roads, but you have a lot of mountainous terrain and trails. And oh, I got to say as well, for the viewer or the people listening, look below in the show notes as well. I'll put a link to, there's a great documentary about his FKT called Taking the Castle. I just watched it, and it's a very, very beautifully shot, edited, great story overall, just a really well done documentary. So kudos to your whole team that did that. It's a great job.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, but great documentary to see. Like, it really gets into what it takes to do one of these multi-day events. Like, you have the logistics of it. Like, you bought a camper van, for it
Yeah.
so that you could have somewhere to, rest and recover, in the night while you're not running. And then also it's just the logistics of lining up your crew. But then you experienced a couple of setbacks along the way, some pretty big setbacks. I think the first one was it like day 3 was when you had that
Mhm.
first kind of setback?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So we've spent hours since then going over everything and what happened and how we could have changed things. But essentially, by day 3, I knew something wasn't right. I was feeling off. I couldn't eat, or eating became a real struggle. I was still eating, but it became a struggle. And then by the end of day 3, I started getting some diarrhea, and that was the beginning of just a kind of a really quick spiral into some really tough times that basically lasted for the rest of the trip. Um,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, we're not really sure what happened. I worked with a nutritionist at the time, Paul Booth. He's a very well known endurance nutritionist in the UK, and he was crewing me as well on the run. And we've spoken a lot about it since, but we think actually I probably picked up some kind of bug or something along the way, because
Oh, okay.
I became literally ill on the trip.
Yeah.
And it wasn't run down from running or anything like that. It was just like something kind of manifested itself. So yeah, once that started, I was the first few days I managed to do in excess of 100 kilometers each day. That was my aim, to do about 100 kilometers per day, to try and finish it in about 10 days. That was my initial aim. Um, and so, yeah, and the first few days were very hilly as well. That was kind of where a lot of the vert took place. So they were long days. Like I was running till after midnight, the first couple of nights. So in hindsight, I can see now that the rest that I had on those first couple of nights was insufficient as well. I was probably in bed for maybe 4 hours or 5 hours. Um, and that's all right, I guess, if you're doing a 200-mile race or something like that. But when you're planning on going for 10 days or more, um, obviously
That adds
rest
up.
becomes a lot. It does add up very quickly, and so the wheels can fall off really fast. So yeah, the next day 4 to 5 were really tough. By day 5 or day 6, I could barely move, and so we decided to have a day off. And I actually we phoned my doctor and explained some of the symptoms, and she said to head into the hospital. So we went into the ER where we were, and they put me on a trolley for a day and gave me a drip. And they wanted to admit me, of course, and they wanted me to stop running, and I promised them that I'd stop running and that I'd leave the hospital and that I'd go home. And of course, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, so the next day I got out, and I managed to get another couple of slow days in. We didn't achieve 100 kilometers. It was probably like 60 or 70. And by day, I think like 8 or something, again, I just hit a wall. I was just completely run down from the diarrhea and the fatigue. And at this point, I started getting some really bad night sweats,
Yeah.
and I was waking up at nighttime just completely soaked, and I was having to change my clothes probably about 5 to 6 times each night, every
Oh, wow.
45 minutes. Yeah, and the bed was soaked, and so I had to move around and find dry places, and sometimes on the floor. And so sleep went out the window as well at this point. And I found that towards the end of each day, I was dreading the nighttime, because I knew the nighttime was going to be torture. And as the end of the night came, I was looking forward to getting up just so I could get out of bed and go running for the day, even though that wasn't going to be much fun either.
Oh,
So
man.
so yeah, it was a really bizarre. The last 5 days were really bizarre. I took a whole day off at about day 8. Day 8 or 9, I took a whole day off and 2 nights. And we checked into a hotel, and I just spent that whole period in my hotel room, resting and hydrating and eating, and that kind of reset things a little bit. And I was able to get out the next few days and do a few 100-kilometer days, or very close to 100 kilometers. And by that stage, the finish line was kind of in sight. A couple of days more, and it was done. But it was a slog. It was a complete slog.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought it was interesting in the video you mentioned that like the last day was one of the most difficult days of the entire journey,
Yeah, yeah,
which you would think the last day you'd have that adrenaline of getting to the finish line, you're excited, but
totally,
y you
totally.
had
Yeah.
you had some struggles. Yeah.
Yeah, I was the last day. I couldn't believe the last night. I went to bed and I was so excited because the next day I think I had 65 or 70 kilometers to run, um, and I just couldn't believe that. I was thinking this time tomorrow it's going to be over. And I'm gonna it's all done. And I had to sleep that night with my legs elevated because I had a really swollen right ankle, which
Yeah.
was the result of me not looking after a little toe which got infected about 2 days earlier. It was
Oh,
just
wow.
tiny. It was a tiny little infection in my little toe, which I kind of ignored. Lesson learned there, and that I had to change my shoes to a wider shoe, and that changed my running gait slightly. And within half a day, I started getting some shin splints or really sore ankles,
Yeah.
and that kind of spiraled from there. So the last day, I could barely walk, let alone run. I was hobbling along, and I'd go through phases of being able to run a little bit, and then the pain would come, and I'd have to walk or hobble. And eventually, Rini, my crew chief, she just said to me, "Look, take these Panadol," because I normally don't like taking anything at all. But she said, "Look, just take the Panadol." And I took
Man.
a couple of Panadol, and literally within 5 minutes, I was running, and the pain had gone, and I was running. I was running on a damaged ankle, but it got me to the end, and
Yeah.
yeah. So it was tough. The last day, I was looking forward to it. I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be like, wow, this is great, a celebration. But it was just,
Right.
yeah,
Like the
it
victory
wasn't.
lap.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Right. But you did it in the end. You did it in 14 days, 9 hours, 26 minutes, and 23 seconds, setting the FKT the fastest no time. Now, do you know, to your knowledge, has anyone attempted it since you did it in June of 2023?
No, I don't think they have. I don't think they have. No, it's ripe for the taking. In fact, thought about going. I've thought about going back there and doing it again because I know I could do a lot better
Yeah,
if
because I
I didn't
think
get sick.
you said you had the one day where it was complete rest, like no kilometers at all. And I think there
Yeah,
was another day, if I remember right from the documentary, where you had maybe only like 7 kilometers. Like it was a very
yeah,
small
something.
day.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, I mean, yeah,
yeah,
gosh, you could totally go back and hit your
yeah.
goal of 10 days, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it is ripe for the taking. I guess once you get into these multi-day events, I'm very aware that the pool of people who are A, interested in doing it, and B, able to have the time and the resources to do this kind of become very limited as well. So,
Yeah.
um, it's a big undertaking
Yeah.
for anyone to do. And I was really fortunate that June of 2023 was a really dry month in Ireland, unusually dry. Now, our camper van was loaded up with rain jackets and umbrellas and all sorts of wet weather gear because, hey, it's Ireland and it rains all year round there. But but I didn't step in one puddle when I ran the whole length of Ireland, and that doesn't happen
Wow.
very often. So
Yeah, that's rare.
yeah, it's very, very rare. So I was really lucky. Like underfoot was just dry, and there was so many fields. So there was so many miles of places where I remember thinking, if it was raining here, it would be terrible. It would be
Yeah.
absolutely horrendous. So I was really lucky with dry underfoot.
Yeah. Well, still an amazing time, 14 hours, 14 days, 9 hours, like it's a fantastic time. But I think looking back retrospectively now, it's kind of that was a stepping stone to what you're getting ready to do now and almost like a training run for what's coming up. And so you mentioned earlier in the podcast that you're about to turn 50. And so, where did the idea? You mentioned that you had originally wanted to run across the width of Australia, but you were like, "Oh, that's crazy! I can't do it." Well, when did that idea become not crazy, and you decide to do it?
But the idea is still crazy. So the only difference, I decided to do it, but it's still crazy.
Yeah,
Um, I guess not long after the Island Way, once I'd recovered from that, you know, my brain started turning, and it was something I sat with for a long time without telling anyone, without sharing it with anyone at all. I guess it was just I kind of let it sit there. I did some research. I looked at previous runs and other things that people had done, and so have we lost a connection there? It's still all right.
Yeah. No, no, I think we're still good, right?
It's still good. Yeah,
Or,
yeah, right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it was just it kind of built up very slowly, and I broke it down into its kind of separate component parts, and I started to rationalize it. And well, if I can do 1,000 kilometers on mountainous trail type terrain, then running down the road on the side of the road in mostly flat conditions, um, I could definitely do 2,000. I could probably do three, and if I get that far again, then obviously I'll be able to grind it out. Yeah. So, you know, the brain's funny, isn't it? The
Yeah.
way we it's just we'll never fully understand it, I guess. But um, like one of the things that really I was really focused on training for the Island Way was how I would manage my mind for so many hours day after day. Like when you're doing one race, it's okay because you've just got the race to focus on, and you'll go through low points, obviously. And but it's over. It's over within 24 hours or 48 hours. You're done. But when you sort of break it
Right.
down into day after day after day, that was one of my biggest concerns. Like, what am I going to do with my mind, and will I get bored? What will I think about? Yeah, what's going to go on there? So I did a lot of reading and self education, listening to podcasts about mindfulness and living in the present, and because that's something I probably have always struggled to do. I tend to be a fairly kind of A-type personality, fast, go get it. You know, not living in the. You know, one of the downsides of that is you often don't live in the present. You're projecting into the future all the time. You're trying to work out the future, and so one of the things about running long distances for me has been really good in that it's slowed me down and it's forced me to live in the present, and that run across Ireland did that for me, and it's probably one of the things I got out of it mostly was what a joy it was, even though I was struggling to just do that every day. I found real peace in that. Um, like, for example, I downloaded loads of podcasts and playlists for Spotify to listen to on that run across Ireland, but I didn't put my headphones on once during that run. I was just listening to my footsteps and listening to the birds and
Nice.
just enjoying the moment that I was in right then. So um, I guess that's what I'm taking into the run across Australia, like, 4X, I guess. It's just going to force me to and take me to that place where I have to live in the present. I can't start day one thinking about day 40. It's going to take 40 plus days. So I just have to
Yeah.
live right in that moment right now. And I'm really looking forward to that. And so I guess, yeah, going back to why, when it became a thing, all this kind of grew. It just grew over the course of many months. And then at some point I realized that I was turning 50 in 2025. And I figured that's probably a really good time to do it. And so I kind of worked backwards from my birthday, and then we put a plan together there. And it's quite difficult juggling that amount of time away from home with kids and school holidays on the other side of the world in Ireland when you're going to be
Right.
living in Australia. So there was a period of just trying to make it happen, trying to hash it together. And once we worked that out with the family, then kind of the decision was made that this is happening, and it's going ahead.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned talking about other people with the Ireland way is there's a small pool of people that may have the resources to be able to do this. And I think one thing I picked up on in watching the documentary about your Ireland way at FKT, so you were not sponsored. You did this all basically on your own dime. Is that right? Because I mean, I saw you wearing, Solomon shirts and Adidas shorts and Hoka shoes and lots of different
Yes,
gear. So,
yeah, that was
so did you?
there was no sponsors in that. That was completely self-funded, and I did that to raise money for the Children's Hospital in Ireland as well, which was great.
Yeah.
So
Eh,
yeah, we learned a lot from that run. Like
Well,
even
with
the even the coverage of that run on the Island Way. I wasn't really a big social media person then, and I had some friends taking care of my account, trying to post a few reels and things like that. Um, and I had a lot of people since that come to me and say, the documentary is really nice. We did really put a lot of effort into the YouTube documentary, but the social media, keeping people engaged in the story in real time, could have been done much, much better. So I learned a lot from that. And this time around, there was quite a few months before I even kind of announced this or decided that's what we were doing, building a team. We've got a marketing team now. We've got people involved with the media. We've got loads of reach outs to potential sponsors who want to become part of this, and we've got two charities now, one in Australia, one in Ireland, both for mental health awareness. And there's
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, and we're building a more formal, structured team of crew as well. Like the team that helped me get across Ireland were insane, and most of those people are going to be on this run in Australia as well. But
Nice.
this team's going to be bigger as well. We've got a full-time professional videographer who'll be covering the whole journey from the very beginning to the very end. So, putting out high quality reels every day, and probably a weekly YouTube mini documentary at the end of each week. Hopefully, we'll get some sponsors on board. Our marketing ladies in the background, they're sending out hundreds of emails to sporting brands, to just about everything out there: nutrition, sports, shoes, apparel, different government bodies and things, to try and get some sponsors on board. Because yeah, it's a big undertaking. It's a huge undertaking.
Yeah,
So
I
it
can
would be
only
nice.
imagine.
Yeah, it would be nice to, cover some of those costs. But at the same time, it's really nice to use the opportunity to raise funds for a couple of really good mental health charities as well. So it's
Yeah,
gone from, yeah, it's gone from being my idea of just running across Australia to this kind of big expedition almost, where there's probably a dozen or more people involved right now, and there's going to be more people involved over the next few months. And
yeah,
the crew chief, he's just building everything in the background. Dave Keane in Ireland, he's running spreadsheets and checklists. He's writing a crew handbook, and he's got every little detail nailed down. So a lot of that's happening in the background, and I don't know much about it, which is great. It's a
yeah.
really nice spot to be. It allows me just to focus on the training.
That's great. Yeah. Well, that's what I was getting at with that, is that the logistics side of it and the resources. Hopefully, you do get some sponsors to come on board and help with this and help raise some funds for these two charities for mental health would be awesome. But you mentioned the social media and getting people engaged, and what I've found really interesting over the last, let's say, maybe 2 years, I've really seen a boom in YouTube content and Instagram, but really YouTube content of other people running the length of New Zealand, the length of what's his name, Russ Cook, the guy that did.
This geezer, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like their whole thing was built around these runs, and if you've got a great team in place, I mean that could be huge for you all to really raise a lot of funds and get people engaged and spread awareness for your charities, but also what you're doing, and I mean that could be
Yeah,
huge for your whole
exactly.
team.
Yeah, exactly. It's at the end of the day, it's becoming like it's not the run. The run is almost disappearing into the background, which is a nice thing, because it's suddenly being done for a much higher cause. For it's being done, and it's not just me. There's every Dave sent me some questions the other day or last month. Just to try and work out what I wanted out of this run. And one of the first questions was, "What do you want out of this run?" And it didn't take me long to think about it, but I wrote back and I said, one of the main things is I want everyone involved to have fun. And there's going to be really terrible times. There'll be dark times. There'll be times I'm probably lying on the side of the road in tears or whatever. But I want everyone to have fun. Let's enjoy it, because we all
Yeah.
choose to do this, right? We all choose to do it. We're not forced to do it. Um, and
Right.
there's something really amazing about that. When what I'm loving right now is how just these people come together. People from strangers from all over the world right now. We've got people coming in from Switzerland, Ireland, Canada. Uh, we got people in Colombia working on the socials. We got the videographers, Argentinian, just who are all strangers, and they're going to get together in Perth in
Wow.
August, and we're all going to live in this little bubble, traveling across the country, sharing some really incredible highs and lows. That's it's so
Yeah.
exciting to do that. To do that, to try and use it as a platform to help something a lot higher than just running. In terms of the mental
Yeah.
health charities, it'd be really, really cool. I can't wait for it.
Yeah,
And
that'll be
also,
amazing.
yeah, social media for me has always been I've never been a big social media fan. I'm probably of that kind of generation that just missed out on the upswing of it, but I'm trying to catch up. And so me being in front of the camera and talking is all very new. And so I'm trying to find comfort in that. I'm trying to find a place of just being at ease in front of the camera on social media. And I guess the more I do it, the easier it's becoming. But
Yeah.
because it is about telling the story. You've got to tell the story. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Definitely. Telling the story is what keeps people involved in it or engaged, want them to come back for the next episode or see how you're doing the next day and come check your Instagram. And
yeah,
it'll
exactly.
be great. I've been a part of a couple of big undertakings like that, where it's maybe a 4-day event or a one that was across the entire United States. I only did a few days of it, but what you mentioned, everybody coming together from all over the world to be a part of this team, you guys are going to have so many amazing memories and bonds that are created from this. That's going to be pretty special. And I think that'll be one of the cool things to see in this video or the videos that come out of this if they do weekly episodes is like not just you doing the
Exactly.
like self-inflicted adversity is what I call,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
everybody else in their growth through this. It's going to be
Yeah.
pretty special.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah. Some of my best memories
Yeah,
about the Island Way is the interaction with the crew. It's not the running; it's the time when you're with the crew in the evenings or through the day, and it's just they're just special moments, and it's really hard to replicate those in everyday life. You have to kind of create that environment where people are in that situation to get that kind of interaction going. It doesn't happen unless you really put yourself out
definitely.
there to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're going from Perth all the way to say it again, Macquarie?
Macquarie,
Okay.
Port Macquarie.
Macquarie. Okay. So 4,000 kilometers. Do you have any guesstimate of what kind of like elevation gain over this entire 4,000 kilometers? What's a rough idea?
I can't remember what it is, but I looked it up like a few months ago, and it wasn't something worth worrying about. So I just kind of let that number go. It was there is
Okay.
there is some vert, but there's it's nothing. It's not massive. Like there's the first few days out of Perth, there is a little bit of vert. It's not much, but and then it's flat for weeks on end. And the last and there's a section in the middle where there's a few hills, but it's nothing. We're not talking like crossing the Rockies or anything like that. And
Right.
then at the end there is some as well, but it's nothing. It's nothing to be kind of scared about.
Okay. Well, then I think the biggest thing is like you mentioned, you lived in the Outback and now you're going to be running through the Outback essentially you're going to have these massive expanses where, I mean, I'm sure you've probably looked at the map and you've got logistics all planned. Do you know like what the longest stretch is from, let's say, one town to the next town that you're going to experience on this route?
There's one section in the first week. Uh, that we're hoping to bypass the main highway and take a more direct dirt road. Um, and that's about 300 kilometers of dirt in the middle of nowhere, and there's nothing. So a lot of that, if we do that, that's kind of weather dependent. If it's raining or if there's rain forecast, that road can get washed out for the support
Oh,
car.
wow.
So we're actually in the process of trying to nail down one or two four-wheel drives to help support us on that section. But it makes the run 100 kilometers shorter, and and it's just more remote, more picturesque instead of running along the side of the highway. Um, Now further
Yeah.
down the road, as you cross like it's called the Nullarbor Plain in Australia. It's the the bottom of Australia has like a big curve. It's the road that runs along the side of that curve on the southern coast. There's about 17 or 1800 kilometers there of remoteness, and there's roadhouses every 200 kilometers or so. So they'll have petrol or diesel, maybe a restaurant or, kind of basic food. There's sections of the longest straight road in Australia is there, and that's 160 um, kilometers or 100 miles of a road without a bend.
Wow.
So that's out there as well. So there's some really, really remote sections there. Yeah, that's going to go on for a couple of weeks of just complete,
Wow.
just nothing.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Like you said, that finding in your head the mental space to be prepared for that and to know that you're going to have, what'd you say, 100 miles of just a straight, not a single turn. I mean, that's that's crazy.
It is, especially when I got into this sport because I love trail running, up in the mountains,
Right.
the trails. So yeah, it's so different to trail running. It's so different. But having said that, this last 6 months, all the running I've been doing so far has been on the side of the road. I haven't seen a trail for months now because and I'll probably stay off the trails because I don't want to roll an ankle now. But the but I'm really enjoying there's something really nice actually about just running along the side of roads in the when it's flat and there's a shoulder, and you can really switch off on a kind of different level to the trails. You're not focused on the stones and the footsteps and where your foot's going next. It's just you just zone out,
That's true.
zone out, and there's something really nice about that. Yeah, but I haven't
Yeah.
done it for 40 days yet in a row, so maybe I, I have a feeling by the end of it, I'll be looking forward to some mountains and trails.
Yeah. Well, that brings up a question. What are the people like in Australia when you're running on the side of the road? Are they um the type where they're going to move over, give you plenty of space, or are they just kind of like, I'm just going to keep on going. I don't care that there's a runner on the side of the road. I mean, is it there's
That's a
obviously
good
some
question.
inherent risk.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, but they're pretty good, and the same in Ireland as well. Like I find generally yeah, I haven't had anyone hoot at me or you often see the car. I always run into the traffic, so I'm running facing the traffic on the
Yeah,
side of the road, and you often see cars swerving away from you because they might have been on the shoulder or close to the shoulder, and I've never experienced any kind of road rage or anyone trying to knock me down or yell at me or hoot at me. So yeah, we're very lucky there, I guess. What's it like over there?
it depends on, I guess, what part of the country you're in, because I've experienced, like, when I lived in the country in Tennessee, those beautiful country roads. There were some people that I guess didn't like to see runners on those country roads, and I've had like twice I had one person throw a drink at me, and another time I had a truck like swerve towards me, like, and I had to jump off the
Wow.
road. It was ridiculous. Yeah, very. So I prefer not to run on the road, and luckily here we've got a wonderful like greenway system where I can run on nice trails or paved trails essentially in town where I don't have to worry about vehicles, because yeah, it's
Wow.
not great at times.
No, that's not good at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
hopefully you don't experience any of that, and everybody is just wonderful and happy to see you and cheers you on, and maybe brings you a Coke.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, I think like over here, one of the biggest the people that have done this recently in the last few years, I've heard some of the challenges are like the smell of the roadkill, the dead animals on the side of the road. That can be nauseating.
Oh, interesting.
So, there's a lot of like, say, kangaroos out there, and that have
Huh.
been hit by trucks and cars overnight, and so all the dead carcasses on the side of the road can be really overwhelming. And we have a
Oh,
thing in Australia called in the outback on these big roads. We have road trains, and they're basically semi trailers, but they're 3 trailers long. So a standard size
Oh, wow.
semi trailer, but they're towing two extra trailers, so three trailers altogether. And they are really long and really big. And obviously, when they go past, you got to hold onto your hat. And they spit up all sorts of dirt and dust, and they're very common out there. So there's something you have to look out for,
Oh,
obviously.
wow.
Yeah,
That's got to be over 150 feet long because I think a standard trailer is like 53 feet. So that's got to
yeah,
be massive.
massive.
Oh my
They're
goodness.
massive. They're massive. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
there's some
I didn't even think that's
unusual
crazy.
things like that. Yeah, and the logistics for the crew of trying to keep like trying to access good food for a couple of weeks across that middle section of Australia is going to be really hard. So like Dave's even drilled down into detail now, where he's worked out the calorie requirement, not just for me, but for the crew on board each day.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's broken that down into weights. So he's worked out essentially how many kilograms of food we need to depart the supermarket with on our last supermarket stop, to get us across. So he's really gone down into deep detail with that, which is great. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's
And I imagine
logistic.
too, you're
Yeah, sorry.
good.
Yeah,
No, I
logistically,
was
it's
just saying, I
really,
imagine as well, not just the food, but the water as well. Like if you're going to those long stretches, you're probably going to have to carry hundreds of gallons of water.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, water's another thing, and um, I know Dave's been in touch with all the roadhouses across the Nullarbor Plain to find out what resources they have, in terms of food and water, and even then electricity for rebooting the camper vans and things. Um, it looks like we'll probably need to get a generator as well, just to carry that so that we can, when we're out in the middle of nowhere, if we need to charge the filming equipment and laptops and things, then we can fire up the generator and have our 240 volts. Um, so yeah, there's a lot. There's so
Wow.
much more to this than just putting on some shoes and filling up some water bottles and going for a run.
Right. This isn't just your 3 hour long run on a Saturday.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
So
Well, when are you looking to start? Do you have a date in mind, or is it kind of you have a time period and it's going to be weather dependent, or do you have a hard start?
yeah, our start at the moment is we're aiming for August the 7th from Perth.
Okay.
That's pretty firm now. That's kind of what we're planning around. My birthday is late September, so we got that date by taking my birthday as an approximate end date and just kind of dividing the distance by two marathons a day, and then working out how many days and taking that back to August the 7th. So that's the plan.
Okay.
The the current record for this run is approximately 100 kilometers a day. Um, and I'm not going to be going out at the very beginning of this run aiming for the record. We're just going into it to see how the body goes in the first week or two. My minimum target each day is for two marathons a day, and we'll just see where it goes from there. I might get to that point and be quite happy to continue on some more each day, but we really don't know. There's so many. It's so hard to project or even imagine how I respond after the first week, the second week, the third week. There could be some adaptation, there could be some improvement, and there might be some kind of some growth as it goes, or it might go the other way as well. So it's so hard to know. So
Yeah.
we're kind of keeping the target fairly moderate to start with. Um, I know 84K is still a long way each day, but it's flat. It's on the side of the road, and if we've got 13 to 14 hours a day to do that, then we should be able to get most of that done. And we're trying to, like,
Yeah.
people are kind of asking me how we'll set the day up. And what we learned too from the Island Way was that I have to make rest a priority. So, especially when this is going for 6 or 7 weeks. So the aim is to try and have like about 8 hours in bed each night, and then
Oh wow. Okay.
allow for 2 hours at the end of each day and 1 hour before when I wake up to when we start running. So that's going to leave. I think that leaves about 13 or 14 hours of kind of work time for the day. And we're going to start like
Yeah.
that just to see. We don't, and we might find that as we go along, we can cut into the sleep. We don't need that much time. Or we might improve in the 2 hours and the 1 hour before and after. So, but we're going to start off really conservatively. And then as time goes on, readjust that. Because I think that's one of the mistakes I made on the Island Way. I went out, everyone feels good at the beginning, and I went out a little bit too hard. I didn't have enough rest, and in the first few nights when the body is obviously undergoing massive adaptations, and then that kind of bit me.
Yeah. Well, that's where I've heard a lot of people that have run very, very long distances say that it's usually like a week to 10 days of those adaptations, like you said, where your body is getting used to what you're doing. And then after that, it like gets a little, I would, easier is not a great word to say, but maybe a little bit easier. Your body's used to it and just kind of accepts that you're going to be doing this for a while and it changes. And so taking a conservative start or approach, I think is a very smart plan to let your body adapt to that and then see how it feels. And maybe you can take it up there from there.
Yeah, I think so. That timetable I took from the current record holder. That's how he established his day. 8 hours in bed, and the rest was the work time with the bits, the prep and the post run stuff. So and I remember listening to Dave Proctor. He was the guy that ran across Canada a few years ago, probably 5 years ago or so, and he averaged about 100K a day across Canada, and that's a lot longer. And he said exactly what you just said. The first 10 days were kind of pretty nasty, but by the second or third week, his body was starting to almost enjoy what was going on, and by the end of it,
Yeah.
he didn't want to stop. Yeah, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, it really is. The human body is fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is. Well, where can people follow along on this journey? Obviously, we're a few months, out from August 7th still, but tell everyone where they can find, this social media that's going to be happening for this, and is there a website or where can they kind of follow along on your journey?
Everything is on my Instagram at Jason Williamson Ultra. And there's a link there to the Comey page, which has all the details, all the donation links, and more details about the run. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, under Jason Williamson. So yeah, but Instagram will be kind of where all the action is starting, and then the YouTube links and everything will be inside Instagram as well.
Okay. Will that be put on your YouTube channel? Because I know you have one. I saw when I watched the other video for taking the castle.
Yeah, we've got that, and that's very small. We're just building that now. We're going to start building that up over the next couple of months. So
Yeah.
hopefully by the time we start, there'll be a lot more on that. And then yeah, the weekly YouTube production I think will be good. Like a bit like what Russ Cook is doing now, running across New Zealand. He's putting up a weekly summary, and I think it's really nice
Yeah.
because these things go on for so long, and every week will be like a story in itself.
Yeah. It's like watching your favorite, sitcom TV show as a kid. You watched it every week, back before we could just have everything on demand. It's like that. People can tune in
Yeah,
and see where you are on week 2 versus week 3, and it'll be fun to follow along.
yeah, yeah. It's going to be
Yeah.
exciting.
Well,
Yeah.
I will put below in the show notes as well for everybody. I'll put the links to your Instagram as well as your YouTube channel, so they can go watch the Taking the Castle documentary about the take the Ireland Way FKT. And I'm looking forward to following you along when in August when this starts. I'm really curious to see how this goes. That's just seems like such a massive undertaking, and especially Australia is just such a massive country and so many different types of environments and things you're going to be running through. I mean, you said this is so August. What's the weather going to be in August?
So like the mornings will actually be quite cool until the sun comes up, and then the daytime temperatures again, like the outback's really unpredictable. Like the average, I guess, that time of year is not too bad. We're talking like you know maybe 30 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but
Okay,
it's not too bad.
it's
It's
like
probably like
80.
80 or something.
Yeah, 86 degrees, 30 degrees
So,
Celsius, 86 degrees. Okay, fair.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So that would kind of be, and it might even be a bit less than that. But having said that, in the outback, you can get these freak heat waves as well that come across, and the average could go out the window, and it could be a lot more than that. So, but while the sun's down, it's quite cool, almost cold. Like, I'm talking down jacket and beanie kind of weather before sunrise. But then as
Oh,
soon as it
wow.
comes up, it's
Yeah.
because you're in the desert, so you get the extremes. Um, and yeah, during the middle of the day, it'll be warm. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I've seen some other documentaries from other long events in hot areas, and I've seen a few people that had made a decision somewhere along the way to try to sleep during the day and run at night solely because of that temperature change being so different. It was interesting to see. Just there's so many things you have to be able to adapt to on big events like this.
Yeah, I think that's the key, adaptation to we're putting this big plan together, but and I said to a couple of the crew last week, we've got this amazing looking plan, but all these ideas and checklists, and you do realize that once the run starts, probably like the first hour into it, that plan will probably go out the window and just be just
Yep.
everyone will be doing what just needs to be done to get to the next stop. Like we plan on trying to. I'm thinking like people that have done this in the last few years. What has worked is every 8 kilometers or so, 8 or 9 kilometers, the van will go down the road and just stop there and wait for me. And we'll have two vans. But one of the vans will always be with me, and we'll stop every 8 or 9 kilometers. And that's kind of that's the rough plan. But again, this could go out the window on day one. We'll be ready to adapt to whatever happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Adapt and overcome. Absolutely. Well, Jason, it's been fun chatting, hearing all about this, and I really am looking forward to following along with this journey and watching hopefully the weekly YouTube videos. Hopefully those come out. I'm excited to see that. That'll be fun, and hopefully to see you guys raise a ton of money for the two charities. Real quick, tell everybody the names of the charities. I know you said one is in Australia and one is actually in Ireland, and I think the one in Ireland is that a Lust for Life. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We just announced that last night or in the last 24 hours. That's gone out. And the second one, which we haven't announced yet, but I guess by the time this goes out, it will be announced, is called Gotcha for Life. And they're an Australian-based charity as well. So they're both Gotcha for Life in Australia and the Lust for Life in Ireland. So we're really
And
excited
they're
to
both
partner with both those people or both those organizations, because they're both very engaging, and they're both really excited about this, and they do want to use this run to make a difference to their charities. So yeah, that's gonna be a really cool part of the journey.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, hopefully you guys go viral and you get millions of followers and and you get tons of money for the charities. I'd love to see it.
great. Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
well, Jason, thanks again so much for coming on. It's been fun. I wish you the best and look forward to following along.
Thanks, Steven. Really appreciate the time you've given me. Yeah, it's been great. Yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode of The Adventure Jogger, please consider joining our Patreon and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok for more content like this. Without your continued support, we would not be able to produce this type of content. So thank you so much to everyone that has listened, followed along, subscribed, liked, commented, you name it, donated on Patreon. Thank you.